looking at ways of creating access up and down the roof a bit easier than it currently is. When I'm sort of perching on the very thin battens, I decided to try and create a little staircase, stairway to heaven, um, to aid me in my ability to get stuff up and down the roof, particularly the tiles. So here you are, looking at me using a circular saw at a 45-degree angle, cutting through one of the old rafters that came away, which is in too bad a nick to be left as a rafter, but is in good enough nick to be used as what we used to call in the south of England an Irish rail. So you're taking a square piece of timber and you're cutting it and making it a triangular section on Aris. Um, the circular saw I've got hasn't quite got a deep enough blade to go all the way through, but it's not really a problem because it's only rough wood. So all I'm going to do afterwards is just split the wood using brute force with a chisel and a climber. Um, and after that, then I can then cut down those sections to be just wide enough to sit um, over to rafters. And I would use some of the old batten as well to give it a bit of support sitting on the new battens. So you can see a bit of the Harris has fallen away there. It doesn't really matter because it's not finished work. It's just something I thought might be useful. You got another bit come off it there. It might be useful just because it would then give me a bit of a tread of about, I don't know, 3 or 4 inches, which is much easier to put your foot on, particularly when you've got size 11 feet than a 15 millimeter piece of batten. So there we go. I've got my few pieces there. There's lots of sawdust there because I was also cutting down batten earlier on, but you've seen me doing that, so you don't need to be watching me do that again. So there you go, my bits of Irish rail. I'm then going to cut those down, like I say, so they'll sit across two chevrons or two rafters, and there you can see in place. Not in any particular order, just using the old batten as well. That got screwed onto. I found some old specialised screws I used to use for decking. They're a bit longer than I needed, but they've got a star head as well. But they're good enough and strong enough that they will just bed into the new batten, and then that just provides a little cushion for the Irish rail to sit on. And there you can see me heading up and down, heading up the stairway like a Fred Astaire. If you don't know who Fred Astaire is, you have to look him up on Google. So the idea behind this, like I say, is that I would like to get the other tiles off the roof, but not have put them down on the garden and stack them down. I'd sooner that know that I've got a fair amount of batten in place, new batten, that I can, as I'm taking the old tiles off, quickly clean them off and then move them over and lay them directly in place. With that, it's a little bit time consuming, but it should be less time consuming than moving all the tiles off the roof so that I can add the breathable membrane and the batten, and then having to, so if I've stacked, as I have done, several hundred tiles currently on the garden, on the garden just at the rear of the house, and there's another several hundred that are currently in the loft space. So my thought process here was, what if I take these tiles off, clean them as I go, and then just keep adding them to the tiling I've already started. So that was the thought process behind it. And there you can see it's a whole lot easier coming down, and then you just work your way across. Just look for where the nails are because the nails indicate on the batten that the batten is fixed to the rafter at that point. And so I can put my not inconsiderable weight onto the batten where the nails are, and then I can put the tiles in place, which is what I'm doing now. I can generally carry about 8 or 9 tiles at a time, and with that, it's, I don't know. This is sped up anyway, so I can't tell you roughly how long it would take, but it must be, I suppose, 4 or 5 minutes to do each, to take the tiles off, quickly clean them, come down, and put them in place. So maybe 2 tiles a minute. And if there's 3,400 tiles, then overall it's going to take me, 1,700 minutes to do that. Obviously, it won't just be done in one fell swoop. It'll be done over a period of time. I'm eager to try and get up to the ridge height so that it feels like you're nearing the end of, even if all the tiles are in place. If all the tiles come off at the top end there and the breathable membrane goes in place and the new batten goes on, it really feels like, wow, because the rear of the roof is much, much bigger in section than the front roof. And then that would just leave me taking the ridge tiles off. And the ridge tiles here are quite interesting. The French artisans who have done the ridge at the time or have done repairs, they do it in a slightly different way to the way that we would do it in the UK. So in the UK, you would tend to have your ridge tile, which is sort of a semicircular section. And the idea is that that protects the roof either side where the tiles end. We would normally put the ridge tiles up to around about 10-15 millimeters apart, which is what, about somewhere anywhere between half an inch or so in old money. And then we would cement between the joints to finish it, so you end up with a flat, level ridge. Here, what they've done is they actually create a raised lip over each join, which is quite interesting. So it gives it an entirely different profile. It's like a little mini castle, if you like. So the band of mortar is a little bit wider because obviously it's going to sit slightly over each tile, either end, and then it sits higher than the tiles as well. If I get a chance, I'll do a video of the ridge close up so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. But it's quite a nice little feature, quite a cute little feature that they've done there. So Michael's going to have a go at doing that when he gets to that. Now we're a good probably 2 and a bit weeks away from that, because once this rear section, all the tiles are in place, I'll have to do the front roof before I can finish putting the ridge tiles on to finish the job. So what I will just do is take the ridge tiles off and give them a bit of a clean up, take the old mortar off, make sure there's not any damage or any cracks or whatever, and in preparation for the French style of attaching the ridge tiles. So that should be an interesting one. So I'm not too far away now, as you can see from the first Velux. And again, once I come to put the Veluxes in, although the Veluxes are all second hand, I will do videos of how I fit them. So if there's anybody out there that's currently got old Veluxes as well, but fancies moving to a different position or whatever, or then you hopefully you'll be able to see the easiest way of doing it and follow my lead. The old Veluxes have all got their flashing kits intact, and I did sort of inspect them. They all seem to be more or less intact. The flashing kit, so you got a frame that sits into the space that you can see there. So you cut away the membrane and you tie that back. The frame then goes in without the window currently attached to it, and then you offer the window in and you open and close and just see if it's sitting nice and square. And if it isn't, then you can do your adjustments with the little brackets that are there. You can add bits underneath it just to straighten it up if you need to. Then you can take the window off again, and then you add the flashing kits. So the flashing kits either side allow the tiles to come up to around about 25 millimeters, or about an inch away from the flashing kit, or an inch away from the window. And the underside, the bottom side, has got like a flexible hose which goes across the front so that the front section is well protected and that drapes over onto the tiles. And the rear of, or the top of, the Velux, you've got two parts. So you've got the part that your tiles sit into, and then the water can then discharge left or right. And then you've got another bit which is like a head section, which then goes on to protect the first bit of flashing that you put in, which is the largest piece there. Excuse me. So that'll be another video coming up. I've got two sizes of Veluxes here. I've got the 98 by 78s, which are the three larger ones, and then two at I think it's 78 by 58. One's for the rear and one's for the front, because the front roof has already got one of the old style little casement style roof windows. And the final one on this roof will be, because you can kind of see four areas there that look like the Veluxes. The two bottom ones definitely are, and the one to the right is definitely one. The one just to my left, just to the left of my shoulders there, that in fact is just where I haven't continued putting on the batten. And what will happen is slightly further up from that. So if you look where the membrane is currently curled up, just after that is where I'm going to end up putting the fourth, a slightly smaller Velux. And the idea I put it so high is that I've had another idea pinged into my head that I'd like to put a mezzanine in on that, at least into one of the bedrooms. And I thought that might be quite a nice sort of, because you get a fantastic view of the stars because you're in the country, in the countryside. And you just see these thousands and thousands of stars. I thought it'd be quite nice. There's a sort of a mezzanine there, and you've got a window, roof window. You can do a bit of chillaxing, let the world go by, let the stars go by. So, what do you think? Am I just an old hippie? Perhaps. So, as you can see, I take the tiles off. If they need cleaning, give them a quick scrape, and then transfer them back over to the other side to continue laying the roof. And although it seems to be taking a while and this is sped up, it must be better than, let's say, taking them all the way down into the garden, stacking them there, and then when the roof's ready, carrying them all the way back up again. That's what I think anyway. So if anybody's got a better idea in it, by all means, drop me a line. And the tiles are all weird and wonderful sizes. There's so many different sizes to them and thicknesses. And I'm not overly concerned by that. The principle behind this is that the roof, once it's done, needs to not allow water to enter the house. So it needs to discharge. All the rainwater that hits it needs to be discharged off. If it's not all lined up, it really doesn't matter to me, because I just think it adds to the character of the property. It is an enormous roof, in fact, for the size of property. But it's just the way it came like that. And driving around, I have seen other places, other houses, old houses that have got these sort of tiles on it, and they all look lovely, and they're all sort of here, there, and everywhere. But it's quite. I find it quite charming looking at the tiles like that. And this is nice because it will all be, I say, some of the ones that have been damaged by the frost or whatever, the softer ones that they've been gotten rid of. So it'd be more or less all completely intact, the roof. And it's got new battens, and it's got new rafters where it's needed to have new rafters, and it's got the breathable membrane, which should keep the area dry, which will prevent things like moss and that taking hold, because there won't be that dampness. The timbers underneath the membrane will be able to dry out. And I'll then just quickly show you a little bit of a section of the tiles a little bit closer up so you can see. I've been talking about, I like to leave a wee bit of a gap between, what my old mason used to say, just leave a bug's dick between when you're doing something, and that just allows for a little bit of movement, because these things are made of clay. They will marginally expand and contract when it's very hot and very cold. If you were to nail them in, you would never nail in tight to the batten. You just nail just so that the nail beds into the batten itself, and it's still loose, so the head doesn't fit in tight into the hole. Because if you do that, then you're making the roof too rigid, and you'll find it will crack and you'll lose corners, which is what's happened on a lot of these tiles, where I think they've just been bedded in a little bit too tight there. So my advice to you, if you ever get to do an old roof or even a new roof, you're putting tiles in which aren't engineered, these old handmade tiles, just give yourself a little bit of room between each one. It's not gonna, it doesn't need to be airtight, but it'll pay you dividends in the long run, because you won't end up after a year or two down the line with chipped corners where the tiles are pressed against each other, and the pressures cause them to snap. Anyway, and there you can see the difference in sizes. Anyway, thanks as ever for watching, and until the next time.